Welcome to the November 25th, 2015 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. Housekeeping as usual. If any member wishes to speak to an item on the agenda, there are speaker request forms on the left of the dais. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we'd like to ask that any member of the audience that has a cell phone or other electronic device that please turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out into the hallway so we don't disrupt the meeting. This time we'll start the regular agenda. We'll consider agenda item number 1, approval of the October 22nd Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes. Look for a motion.
Move approval.
Motion's been made by Karen, second by Linda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Can you get them to swap 2 and 3 around? The
Motion
owner on 2 was supposed to
passes.
show up.
He's not.
Okay. All right.
Item number 2 is 15 VA 005. The applicant has not shown up at this time. I know that some board members like the applicants to be here when we actually hear this. I don't know if we want to hear item number 3 first and give item number 2 a chance to get here.
Second.
Motion's been made to revise the order by Commissioner Skull, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 3.
Item number 3 is an appeal of Epic Outdoor Advertising of a building official's decision related to electrical service to a sign. I was informed by Epic's attorney yesterday that they are withdrawing the appeal. So that won't give us very much more time, but that's the status of number 3.
I would move that we move item number 2 to our next meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Probably need to acknowledge the withdrawal.
thank you. The motion would be, if we could get a motion, please, to acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal of item number 3.
Motion's been made by Steve, seconded by Jan. All those in favor of acknowledging the withdrawal?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, discussion? Yeah, with 1 abstention.
Then I move that we move item 2.
Motion's been made by Steve and seconded by Commissioner Skull to move item 2 to the next meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. All those in favor of adjournment? Opposed? And we're adjourned. Now, on to the agenda for the Planning Commission meeting for November 25th, 2015. Items 1 through 6 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision. Are there any items 1 through 6 staff would like removed from the consent calendar?
Items 4, 5, and 6.
Are there any other items 1 through 6 that the Planning Commission would like removed? And are there any other items, I guess it's 1 through 3 at this point, that the audience would like removed? Motion's been made by Commissioner Rollinger, seconded by Marchand to approve 1 through 3. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Items 1 through 3 have been approved. Item number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 4 is a rezone from General Ag District to Low Density Residential District. This property is located out at Red Rock Estates. It was originally zoned General Ag District and was, at that time, going to be a part of the Red Rock Golf Course. Since then, the golf course has developed out, and the developers realized that they've got a property that could be zoned LDR, which would allow for one single-family home. They subsequently made the application, and we've processed it and brought it before you for consideration. Mr. Borgmeyer is in the audience today and brought to our attention before the meeting that he did not receive a letter of notice of the rezone, and he owns property directly to the west of this parcel. We pulled our file and checked to make sure that a letter was sent to the address provided on the Director of Equalization's tax notice forms, and we can verify that one did get mailed per the ordinance to that address. Mr. Borgmeyer still did not receive that letter and would like to speak to the item today. Our recommendation is that since the legal notification was met according to our records, and that this is in compliance with the city's comprehensive plan, that the rezone be approved as submitted. And if you'd like to maybe take testimony from Mr. Borgmeyer. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Borgmeyer, would you like to speak?
This one? Okay. Good morning. My name is Bob Borgmeyer. My family owns a ranch corporation called Solidor Ranches, Inc., and as some of you know, we own 5,000 deeded acres next to Rapid City. Included in that is 3 square miles that stretches from Carriage Hills to the forest and surrounds Red Rock Estates, as well as Countryside North. And FYI, the 3.5 million gallon tank that just turned on the water for Countryside North is on our ranch buried. We have a long and good relationship with Rapid City, and we, generally speaking, have had a good relationship with the individuals at Red Rock Estates. I specifically, anybody that knows me, and unfortunately Vicki and Karen, for example, have more than 20 years of experience dealing with me. When I get something, I react right away. I did not get anything. Part of the problem is the curse of owning 5,000 acres and so on. We have probably, I don't even know until I pay the tax bills, we probably have 40 different parcel numbers in Pennington County, and then we have Meade County. The way Meade County handles it is the way Rapid City used to, and that is it was certified. So if you never got back a signature, essentially the person was not in notice. I'm sure there's good reasons why Rapid City doesn't do it that way, but Meade County still does, and I have to sign off on the notices that come there. The specifics here, I'm not competent, no time to get a surveyor to look at it, no time to get an engineer to look at it, no time to get our law firm to look at it. I simply request that this be postponed or delayed or forwarded to the next meeting. I would hope that the difference between having this decided at the planning on November 25th, on the face of it, wouldn't appear to prejudice whoever is the principal. I guess it's Renner. I don't really even know who the principals are specifically. The alternative is the planning. You can go ahead and deal with the merits and vote as you think best. Unfortunately, that's a kind of a lose-lose situation because that forces all of us to have to look at it from an engineering and a legal and a surveying perspective if there are any issues, and have those issues raised at the council meeting and the mayor, as opposed to, generally speaking, having those either thrashed out between the parties if they do exist, or have it decided at the planning level, and that's the end of the issue. And so that's really my request, that this particular issue be rolled over for presumably another month, and that would give me time to have our surveyor and my engineering firm and the law firm look at it. We own 3 square miles. We own 3 square miles all around this point, and we also are the landowner to the north. We own the residential lot in the far northwest corner of Red Rock Estates, so we're contiguous there as well. So we have miles. We are by far the largest neighbor to this, whatever the specifics of this proposal are. I'm open to any questions. Obviously, we will correct why it goes to an address that is not where our headquarters is. And again, I'll correct that at the equalization office. Somehow the bills get to me, okay, but somehow apparently this did not. I don't know anything about the substance. So I don't know if I didn't check a category, if I'm for it or against it. I'm completely ignorant of it. I learn about it when I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and say, well, what's on the agenda the day before Thanksgiving? Anybody have any questions that I could answer that would shed some limited light on this?
Mr. Chair? The applicant's consultant representative is in the office, or in the audience today. If maybe you'd like to take some comments from Renee, just for clarification as to what her clients might need on this rezone.
Sure, Renee, would you like to speak a little bit? Thank you, Mr. Borgmeyer.
Renee Catron with Renner and Associates. This is a legally platted lot within the subdivision's been sitting there for years, and the owner would like to build a house on it, so we have to rezone it to low density. That's the story. I personally did the mailers, and his address I did question because it's always gone to Arizona, because I've been doing this for years also to Mr. Borgmeyer. And now it goes to a Deadwood Avenue address, but I have to do the list that I am given. So he did get the notification to the address that is listed.
Don Ford was with me on that property a month ago and never said a word to me about it.
It's his
So
property.
they know where I live.
Well, let's try to keep the discussion going this way. I do have a speaker request from the board from John Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I had a question for Mr. Borgmeyer.
Yes, sir.
Over the years, I know that you've appeared before us before, and that you know Mr. Ward. And when you became aware of this, did you call him to see if he would mind continuing this item so you had time? Pardon me?
I have rock and roll ears from too much Rolling Stones, and a big cavern like this is the worst possible thing. Pardon? Oh, excuse me. I have rock and roll ears from too much Rolling Stones in college and graduate school.
He asked you if you talked,
Thank you.
he asked you if you talked to Don Ward.
No, I just found out about it.
When did you find out?
I found out about it yesterday afternoon at 3 o'clock.
And
I mean, when I say I find out about it, let me just be precise. So I can't pull up exhibits, attachments, maps, okay? I didn't even know that there was I didn't even know if there was a notice requirement. We don't drive on Prestwick. This time we have the cattle in there, so we drive in from Sheridan Lake Road. And so I didn't see the yellow sign, which faces, of course, toward Prestwick. I didn't see the yellow sign until yesterday. Again, I can only answer your question, the answer I didn't. On the other hand, as I said offline, I want to emphasize we have more than a decade of relatively good experience with Kevin and Don, okay? With relatively few surprises. Don and I met at the western terminus of Bethpage 6 weeks ago, approximately, out in my pasture land, just to say hello. And he never mentioned this. I'm not blaming a guy, I'm not blaming anybody, but, there's all sorts of ways to learn about things. And the old-fashioned way is somebody mentions to you, hey, we're thinking now about moving forward formally. So, that's it.
this is a request for rezoning, and the notice,
It has to go to city council twice, first reading, then second.
it really does. And whether Mr. Ward had an obligation or a working relationship with you, I guess probably he's met the code, and I understand the notice requirement, the lack of the letter, but on the rezone, you'll have 2 more opportunities for people to talk about it before your engineers and attorneys get a chance to look at it. So, thank you.
Karen?
What did you say?
It goes to city council twice after this, so he said you'll have more time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bob, I wondered if it would be possible to show the map, and if that would help you, to see the map and show where it's at, so you can see.
I think he drove by the property yesterday if he saw
he
the
knows what
sign.
Okay.
Pardon?
Did you drive by the property if you saw the sign posted?
I drove by it yesterday afternoon at 3:30.
So you know where the property is and which property we're talking about, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I accept the world as it is, okay? And I'll have our surveyor, our engineer, and our law firm look at it. I would much rather have it handled at the planning level, but if necessary, whatever issues, concerns, questions we have, it'll be handled at the level at the council.
And I think down the road, after the rezone has occurred, I think then you'll see how it's going to be developed, and that might help you, by visiting with the staff. And your concerns about drainage or any of those kind of issues, I think, will come later.
Again, not at all meant personally in a negative sense. You and Vicki know how incredibly sensitive we have been for over 30 years to that particular part. You guys know that we facilitated the construction of the reservoir. We allowed a voluntary annexation exactly in that area. Okay, we have some partial vacation of the section lines exactly in that area, and for 50 years the Borgmeyer family has said, of all the fortunate, from most people's perspective, 5,000 acres we own, that is the single most sensitive spot in all of the acreage we own. So we don't want to make a mistake there.
Understand.
Okay?
Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I might, Mr. Borgmeyer is correct. We've worked very well with him over the years, and he's been of a great asset in getting some of the utilities improved so that Red Rock Estates can actually expand. It is so unfortunate that he did not receive the letter. However, our records do show that the applicant did meet the mailing notification requirement. I would like to offer up to Mr. Borgmeyer that the first hearing for the reading for the rezone is December 7th at City Council, and the second reading is December 21st. And it isn't until the 21st that the action would be final. We would welcome Mr. Borgmeyer to come into our office and sit down and go over the files with us and remind him that the actions today at Planning Commission are only a recommendation, and we would go over the file with you prior to the December 7th City Council meeting and bring forward to them any comments you might have regarding the rezone.
Any further discussion on this item from the commission?
Second.
There's been a motion to approve the item in a second. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we're to item 5, and I actually have to abstain from items 5 and 6, so I'm going to turn the heavy handle of the gavel over to Karen.
I'll be abstaining from 5.
Okay. Since I'm directing this, is there any other issues reason why we pulled this, Vicki, other than the abstention?
No, just for
Okay.
the abstention.
Okay. So in that case, then I'm just going to ask for a motion unless there's any other discussion on the item. Okay, motion's been made by Linda and seconded by John to approve item number 5 with the abstention of 2 gentlemen up here. So all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes with the 2 abstentions. Okay, we're at item number 6.
Again, we asked this one to be pulled so that we could have Mr. Braun abstain.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion to approve item number 6 with Eric abstaining. Not you, though. You're not abstaining. Okay. I just want to make a short comment on item number 6. I have abstained on phase 1 of this item, but because it was adjacent to my property, this piece is not, so I'm not going to abstain from this. But I just wanted that noted, so. Okay, all those in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes with the exception of Eric abstaining.
That takes us to the start of the regular agenda, item number 7.
Item number 7 is 15 PD 029. The applicant has indicated that the property owners are not going to be in town for the holidays and has requested that the item be continued to the February 4th, 2016 Planning Commission meeting. They have signed a time waiver, so they won't be in trouble with that. That staff's recommendation is to continue to February 4th.
Motion's been made by Steve, seconded by Linda to continue to February 4th. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Item number 8.
Thank you. Item number 8 is 15 PD 033, a final plan development to allow mini storage units to be developed on property zone on approximately 6.89 acres of property zone general commercial district. The applicant is proposing to construct in a 2-phase project approximately 96,200 square foot of mini storage unit space on the property. The applicant is requesting 2 exceptions. The first, to waive the requirement to build an opaque screening fence, and the second, to waive the required building materials. I'll take you through some photos and we can take a look at that. This location of the property, we should be aware that since this application has been made, this property and the property adjacent to the east have been consolidated through a lot line consolidation plat that was reviewed administratively. However, since the legal description that was submitted as a part of the application were for this lot specifically, we've maintained the original lot lines as shown on the original application and request. Zoning of the property is general commercial district. You can see it's a little hard to make out, but this area west of the property line here is within the county, Pennington County. It's not within the city limits, its own suburban residential district. Got mix of public, medium density residential district to the north, county highway services to the south. We should note that portion here of medium density residential district is actually Church of Latter-day Saints. I'll look at the major street plan for the property. As you can see, it's located along a principal arterial street, Moon Meadows Drive, Highway 16, also a principal arterial street. And a look at the future land use plan. The thing to note here, the property is considered appropriate for general or mixed use commercial. It is located in a gateway, as noted here. It's located within an entrance corridor, as noted by the blue dash line. It's also noted within what's called a community activity center, identified in the comprehensive plan as an area for high intensity commercial activity. Your shopping complexes, restaurants, that type of use. Look at what the applicant is proposing. If you've been paying attention to the agenda, this has been continued several times to allow the applicant to work with the city to revise their plans to show a little bit different take on what they're proposing than what was originally intended. So you can see the first and second phases where they're located at. Phase 3, the applicant would like to note that it was not to be developed as storage units. This is a look at some of the architectural features standard in Mr. Fox's developments. He has done mini warehousing or mini storage warehousing in several areas across the country. There is a current example of his work located on the south side of Interstate 90, north of Eglin. It's the Fox Den storage units that are located there. If you're familiar with those are fairly new. Look at the office building that they're proposing to construct. Discussion about the exception request. Rapid City Municipal Code requires that all mini storage warehousing that's constructed in the general commercial district must be constructed of wood, stone, or simulated wood siding. The applicant was not proposing to construct the storage units with one of the approved materials. He instead was requesting steel construction. Since that time, he has revised his request. And give me a moment here. We'll go back to this, but to note here, this is a good example. The applicant is now proposing to use a combination of stone veneer and cement hardboard siding, which would be modeled to look like wood, along the eastern and northern sections of all the proposed structures in order to screen those from the passing traffic on Moon Meadows Drive as well as on Highway 16 to maintain the architectural style within the Community Activity Center, the Gateway Corridor. The balance of the buildings will be constructed with the steel construction typical of the architectural style of these types of units, which we'll go back and show you here in a moment. The other exception that is being requested is to allow to not require the opaque screening fence. As part of Fox Storage Den's design standards, they prefer not to have the opaque screening fence. What they are proposing instead is a decorative metal security fence, powder-coated black, along, again, the east and north sides of the property in order to provide that aesthetic appeal along the Gateway Corridor, along the principal arterial streets. And they're proposing a black chain link fence with no slats, 6 foot tall, along the western and southern property lines. No screening is to be provided as a part of this. This would be an example of the black metal security fence that they would be proposing, along with the stone veneer and simulated wood, or the cement hardboard construction that they're proposing. So to continue, a look at the Fox Den storage units that are located south of Interstate 90. So this is a good example of what the construction materials and types are today, especially the balance of the construction. Look at the landscaping features, architectural style that are typical of the development being done today. Okay. One other thing to note, the applicant's lighting plan, they are proposing that this will be lit along the perimeter continuously, 24 hours a day. The lighting will be focused into the site, will not be focused outside the site to create a nuisance to passing drivers. Any lighting for people that need to navigate inside the site at night would be essentially motion detection, which would allow the lights to turn on and off as they move through the site. Look at the landscaping plan. They are proposing to screen the exterior of the site, signage, monument sign as shown in some of the pictures previously, 20 by 20 foot pole mounted sign. Look at the shot of the property, the sign posted, level, grass covered, not a lot of tree cover. This is looking west on Moon Meadows Drive and looking east on Moon Meadows Drive towards the intersection of Moon Meadows Drive and Highway 16. I'll look at the Church of Latter-day Saints to the north and the National Forest Service building located to the north and east of the property. And one more view of the property from the south side of Moon Meadows Drive. Staff appreciates the time that the applicant has put into working with us to design a site. They feel, I'm sure Mr. Fox is available to speak, that they're trying to find some kind of compromise. However, given the unique situation of this property, located within an entrance corridor, located within a gateway to the community, it's important not only to maintain the design standards of the general commercial district for mini storage units, but also to promote a positive image of the city and to promote areas of the city for high density, high intensity use commercial development. And staff, when considering this, or took that into consideration when reviewing this, and ultimately found that this was not the appropriate use for this neighborhood. It does not generate a high amount of commercial activity, and although it's designed well, it is not going to spur additional economic development in the future. With that, staff's recommendation is to deny this application. Mr. Fox is available, as well as his representatives, to answer any questions you might have, and staff is available for questions at this time.
I've got 2 speaker request forms on this item. Does the commission have any questions for Robert at this point? Seeing none, Jeff Fox, would you like to speak?
My name's Jeff Fox, and I'm the owner, and me and my son. This would be our 6th location. I've always ran this business that I want to be a good neighbor. So if you go look at Eglin, there wasn't a lot of the requirements were on Eglin that we did because we want to look good. We're a very secure unit. We don't let anybody ever park anything outside. There is no outside storage at all. You can only park there when you're in your unit. You can't park overnight if you drive by. That's why you don't see any cars in there. We don't want cars in there unless you're in and out of your unit. I want to be able to see through it because the people are more secure. We look better, it's more secure, and a lot of people that do the storage there are there late at night, and they need to be secure. And they know if somebody else is in there if they can see them. So it's a security thing and a cleanliness thing. When we met with the first time with the I don't know, are you called staff? Is that what I'm supposed to, the staff or what, the planning, whatever. And I said, I didn't realize there was all these different rules. And so they started telling me the problem that they had with the facility. The first, and if I'm wrong, you correct me, but the first problem they had is they were really concerned of this area coming into the South Rapid of the appearance of the buildings. I said, okay, well, I will guarantee you then we'll only use the back part of the lot and we'll never have storage. That's why it states right on that there will never be storage closer to Highway 16. And I put it in writing, put it there. The other thing is we have a problem with, the size fence you want and what you want to do with the fence. And I said, okay, what can I do? They said, well, you can't do a 6-foot fence and barbed wire, but you can do a 6-foot fence. I said, done. We'll put a, actually a black powder coated metal fence that comes from Blackhawk, anywhere you see from Moon Meadows and anywhere that you would see from Highway 16. And I wrapped it around the corners even a little bit farther so you would less chance of seeing anything else. And I said, then I'll do a decorative black chain link fence across the back. And it's a good compromise. They said, well, your materials aren't correct. You can't use metal. You can use, if I remember right, it was masonry products, a cement board, wood, and I can't use wood because it's combustible. It'd be dangerous for that. So I said, so I went and actually got hardy plank and actually put them on my building and took the pictures for you and then put a wall on side the building that has a stone so you can see exactly what it would look like. And I've spent millions of dollars trying to make the image that we have, and I want it still to look as close as I can to that image so it looks like part of the family. So I went and actually took the fence down, put the board up, took pictures of it, then put the fence that you see in there, the black fence, is a fence that I actually have in my location in Vine Grove, Kentucky, Fort Knox, Kentucky. And I actually superimposed that exact fence on there from pictures so you could see exactly what it looks like, because there's always what it's going to look like and what it really looks like. So I gave you exactly what it was going to look like. They had a problem with any doors being seen from Moon Meadows or any doors being seen from Highway 16. Well, first, I don't really know if you could see any doors from 16 because you're 600 feet or whatever, a long ways away. And I plan on developing the front part. I just don't know what it's going to be yet. And, whatever you have is going to be probably taller than any of the storage buildings, so I don't know how much you're going to see in the back half anyway, but I understand the concern. There's always a concern of that. So I took all the doors off the north side, other than the office building. You got to get in and out of the office. And I took all the doors off the north side of the buildings, took all the doors off the east side, took all the doors off the west side, right? So I think, okay, now I got over that hurdle, right? And then we talked about the fencing, and then there was recommendation from staff that that I should do a little less screening in front now because I have the decorative, good-looking fence, and put a little bit more of that on the back, south side, and the west side because of the chain link fence. So I moved more of the, landscaping to the backside, okay? So I don't really know what else I can do. I mean, I believe I've toured 100 facilities, if I've toured one, and it's much more than 100, to understand what we're doing and what we do right and what we do wrong. I truly believe that we have the best looking facility right now in Rapid, and then this one's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars more than the ones we already have, so I think it's even that much better. I don't know if I could make it look any better, unless I used, natural stone all the way around the buildings that nobody's going to see. And that doesn't make economic sense. I can't do that and make the thing work. So I'm almost agreeable to anything anybody asks me to do, as long as I can get over the hurdle and make some money doing it, getting over the hurdle. And I think I've done that. I think that the whole, you listen to all the stuff that goes on in Rapid, and I don't know what the answer is. You guys know more than I do, but there's going to be an awful lot of apartment buildings built on the south side. The people that have apartments, usually as a general rule of thumb, are the best customers for storage because they have nowhere to put their stuff. And so, and ours is clean. I'm looking for the guy that puts a car in there or puts a boat in there. That's who we're getting because of all the cameras. We have, 40 to 50 cameras that are all on the site to keep for security and to watch movement, and so the stuff's there. The whole idea is when you roll down the garage door and you come back, some people come, every 3 months, and they come to pick up their, their love for their Mustang, and you want to make sure the car's still there when they roll the thing up. And that's the idea. The idea is you're secure. If you ever came into the office, there's two 70-inch, 65-inch screen TVs now that are showing, they just keep flip-flopping the views. So you can see that your stuff's intact, and it's being monitored and being watched. The LED lights, most of the jurisdictions I'm at, I don't have to use LED. They're a lot more expensive. We put every light in the facility is LED. So it's neighbor friendly. So I guess there's one thing that they didn't show that I think you guys all got, guys and gals all got on your packet, but the video really kind of shows what we do. We're just not a one-place facility that shows they're all the same. I'd like to play the video, if we can play the video up here. Is there a way to play the video, just the video part of it up here? You can pull that one off. I know you're the only one that jumped up to even attempt this.
Give me a minute here.
All right, cool.
The video that Mr. Fox is referring to was on the agenda summary that you all had access to prior to the meeting, so many of you probably have already seen it. Of course, we're having connectivity problems, so. We're not connected.
Would it be worth it to have Rich Huffman speak while I look at the possibility of the video?
Don't keep going. My name's Rich Huffman. I'm a lawyer. I've represented Mr. Fox since he came to town. The only couple of things I want to point out is when you look at gateway corridors and entrance corridors, and specifically what the city has posted, the gateway corridors are marking the passage into the city. The landmark is the U.S. Highway 16 at the city's southern limits near Fort Hays. We are north of that. Now, that being said, I drive that every day. When you come in from Mount Rushmore, and you drive past that Fort Hayes corner, you're going to be totally endangering yourself if you try and see this property from that side angle. Okay, this part of the property is totally hidden as you come in to the city. I mean, you can go drive it, but trust me, you just can't see it. I mean, well, you could. When you get even with it, you're going to have to do this. But you're supposed to be driving that way. Okay, Number two, the entrance corridor is extending south from the Rapid City limits, page 109. Well, we're at the city limits. South is going the other direction away from us. Now, I understand there's a circle in the map, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But, I mean, this is what you printed when you defined these things. There are hundreds of acres of undeveloped land out there. I did go talk to Kent Hague, who are working on a 160-unit apartment complex for the back half of their property, which is immediately across to the east. And Kent said, you can tell the Planning Commission, we're all for these storage units. I showed him the pictures. I mean, you can't build storage units that look any better than this. You probably can't build 80% of your commercial buildings, sorry, Andy, but that look as good as this. Yeah, you can, and you would. Now you would, but, you know, most of them being built don't look this good. As I wander through this, this is designed not to be seen from the highway. It's designed to facilitate use of the neighborhood. And as best I can tell, the only design standard that we didn't meet are those ugly, opaque slats that were, if I recall, put into the ordinance about 20, 30 years ago. Karen might remember, when Joe Graziano was building those storage units on West Main and the neighbors didn't want to see them. So you came up with the slat idea. Well, a slat idea out here makes less sense because it's going to look a lot worse. If you go to that, it looks shitty. Okay? I'm sorry. I just think you'd be hard-pressed to deny this applicant this application, and I'll answer any questions you have for me.
I think
Thank
we
you,
did
Mr.
finally
Huff.
find a copy of the video. I'm trying to get it to load up now here.
Yeah. Steve has a question for staff.
Take pictures up there and show them some pictures?
We'll see if we can't load the video.
I think I've got
If you
it.
have anything, you can give it to me, and I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Easier to see what's, everything you've got in there.
It's already linked, yes.
Vicky, I have a question. And my question is, if you drive around, you see the storage units around town, and then they're correct. I mean, this is probably one of the best looking I've seen. The opaque slatting, I hated that ever since it came up. They tear apart, they look crappy. I mean, it really makes the property look worse than if you actually saw the buildings. So I guess my question to staff is, after having seen this, what is our opposition to this? Is there something that's really serious that you see there? I mean, I'm just curious as what the difficulty here is.
So when this application came in, and remember this, when this was rezoned general commercial some time back, it's got a plan development overlay on it because we had identified even back then that this is a sensitive area. It's the start of first impression of Rapid City. This is our southern boundary to date. And even though the use is a conditional use in general commercial, it doesn't mean that it's appropriate for every property that's zoned general commercial. As we have with this applicant and another property owner just up the street on Highway 16, we've had similar conversations. When we look at this comprehensive plan that's been adopted by the city that identifies this as the gateway into Rapid City and also the gateway into the Black Hills, this is a community activity center. This is one that should promote employment, commercial activity that would not only cater to the neighbors but to tourists, etc. Certainly mini warehousing doesn't meet that requirement. We see that as something that is permitted in industrial and conditional only in general commercial. We've met with Jeff several times. We've had some wonderful meetings. He puts a little different spin on the meetings than I recall, but note that he did request to continue to meet. He understood that regardless of how great these looked, and he has done a great job making them look good, that at the end of the day, the land use itself is what we're speaking to. Not necessarily are they visible from 16, are they designed well. It's in this area. Does the use of this property meet this comprehensive plan that was very recently adopted by not only the Planning Commission but the Council that preserves this area to serve the purpose as the gateway into our city? And remember, we've had similar conversations with other developers along 16, and they've not brought forward those applications, realizing that that's not what they wanted, that's not the impression they wanted to give of the traveling public or of the residents of Rapid along Highway 16. Having said that, I would also like to note, though, you're not required to have slat fencing along a mini warehouse unit. It has to be opaque. We certainly would encourage other material. Unfortunately, it did get amended to allow slats because it saves cost from other building materials. So having said that, if the video's ready to go.
Yes, it is. Volume, no volume. This is
Foxton Store, Janesville, Wisconsin. Foxton Store, Rapid City, South Dakota. Foxton Store, 24 hours available. At Foxton Store, we take pride in our clean, secure, state-of-the-art storage facility. Our facilities offer the perfect space for storing household items, office supplies, vehicles, motorcycles, snowmobiles, boats, RVs, and much more. Some of the storage unit features include 100% concrete drives with access roads smoked to prevent standing water. Maintenance of outside facilities are also provided. We offer 24-hour surveillance with sensor cameras monitoring movement and activity on the grounds. Cameras store facial and vehicle images upon entering the premises. There is motion sensor lighting in all aisles of the storage units. Exterior lighting also shines on all storage units. Security lock packets are provided. The renter creates individual access codes. Management is on site. Our locations are easily accessible from the city and surrounding areas. Contact Foxton Storage at foxtonstorage.com.
Just shows the differences here. That's it. That's it. That's your sound.
Thank you. Galen has a speaker request up.
Is there any other questions for me, or?
Got a few commissioners signed in to speak, and we'll call you up if need be.
Yeah, I may have a question later, but I guess my general impression is that I am in support of this. It's my opinion that this probably is a good use for this property. It's, and I appreciate the extra work that Mr. Fox has put into making the visual, improving the visual aesthetics of this place. I guess the one question I might have that maybe you can answer later is the landscaping plan, especially along the eastern side, it does look like you have planned for some trees along there, which I guess would count as a good vegetative buffer, which we've approved in the past as adequate screening. I had to pull up I know we don't necessarily follow case history, but we approved the storage units up on Catherine Avenue on the July 23rd meeting, and that was a very similar case where they suggested alternative building materials and allowing vegetative buffers. I know, granted, it's different. It's not a corridor, entrance corridor situation for that one, but just thinking of what we've approved in the past, and this is above and beyond, I think, what we've approved for other storage units. So I guess with that, that's really where I'm at on it. I think it is a good location. As we said, it's very hard to be visible from Highway 16. You're not going to notice it, especially if you have a second commercial property that develops right next to it. So with that, I guess maybe a little more clarification on what sort of trees are going to be on the eastern side of your property.
Galen has a question regarding the landscaping. Yes.
We gave a complete landscape plan right down to which plant is going where and pictures of the plant.
Maybe
Or tree or evergreen.
with Robert's help, maybe we could pull that up.
For the sake of brevity on the presentation, we didn't include their planting schedule. I'll put it up here for you now. First things first, this is the landscaping plan that was shown as a part of the presentation. Here's a legend explaining the types of trees. I suppose we'll bring up the old landscaping plan, but it's a combination of lindens, ash, ponderosa pine, prairie fires. Pretty typical for the landscaping you'd see in the Rapid City area.
Okay, so I guess that answers my question. On the eastern side, there's, using that key edge, I guess you didn't notice, there's large trees planted along the eastern side of this property. So once those get established, this is basically going to be not noticeable from the highway, is my opinion of it. Yep.
Thank you. Andy Scull.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to build upon Galen's comments to some degree, and I won't take offense to you hiring Mr. Huffman. But please, I've only known him for 27 years. And I want to reference the landscaping plan that's up here. And so building upon Galen's comments, I guess I would like to make a proposal. I agree with Steve's earlier comment that, the slats do provide screening. However, they do also, maybe it's not as aesthetically pleasing, nor is it's a maintenance issue long term. So what I would propose and see if I could get support on is it's hard to see on this plan, but I think on the western side of the property line, the upper building is building 7, the lower building is building 14. What I guess I would propose is along that western side is to keep, yes, thanks, Robert, to keep the black chain link fence. However, make all of those trees a large evergreen or coniferous tree, which would provide additional screening. I would also propose along the western elevation of those two buildings and the southern elevation of 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, and 9, and 8 to not provide the masonry stone, but to provide a full siding material that is of the hardy plank siding. And then on building 3, which is the building that's directly west of your office building, to provide the masonry and the hardy plank siding to a minimum of 50% of the depth of building number 3 there, which would, as you look beyond the office building, you would have the same facade as you would on the northern and eastern edge. I guess I feel like, you know, we're protecting the interest and the property rights to the people to the west and the south that, I mean, to the south, it's currently an RV park that I don't know how well it's used, but you can see that being turned into low-density, suburban-type park forest residential areas. I think that would best protect their interest into the future. And I agree with Galen's comments that, and Vicky's comments, this is a corridor, and I think we are working to beautify our corridors. I think this corridor needs the least amount of work in comparison to some other areas of town, but I think the primary focal point along Highway 16 Catron is going to be the intersection of 16 and Catron, progressively decreasing as you go south, but maybe also progressively increasing as you go north on Mount Rushmore Road. But you know, I feel that if we agree to make these types of modifications, we've done everything we can to uphold property rights for people in the future, but also to uphold those of the current owner, and that's Fox Den Storage. So I'm not ready to make that motion. I guess I see there's a few more comments out there, but I would throw those ideas out there for support.
John Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess Galen and Andy have made comments that that I support, and I just wanted to address a little bit the comprehensive plan, which we worked on for a couple of years, and which I really think has made a difference, and this commission is using that to work on these decisions with regard to the development of our community. But with regard to the statement that staff has indicated that it's a high intense use and it has to be jobs and other areas, I think in that high intense use there is plenty of need for areas that will support that intensive commercial development in there. And that if the Haigs think that Fox Den is going to enhance their commercial development, then I see that as hand in hand with maybe the intent, but not the vision expressed when we penned the comprehensive plan. I too drive by that property, both on Moon Meadows and 16 regularly. Since this application came forward, I went out and took another look. It truly is going to be one that is not going to impact 16. And so I have one final question with regard to Mr. Fox had indicated that he put in writing that it would never be storage on that 16 adjacent property in there. Just clarification, is that in the deed or is that a written agreement as part of an approval on this process or approval of this item?
Mr. Chair, if I might, please.
Sure.
This is in a plan development overlay, and this is the master plan. Anything they would do on the eastern portion of the property would have to come back before the Planning Commission for review and approval.
And I'm assuming that our archive would not forget that in red it said never will be storage. I appreciate the efforts that Mr. Fox has made to spend a little bit more for a property to put into this area and add it to our community. So I am just saying that if there is a motion to approve this, I'll be in support of that motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Karen Ballman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Andy's comments. The west and south side of that property did have some concern for me because of the future development of those areas and the protection of those folks that would live or work in that area. My main concern, though, I believe, is still with the land use. The northern part of our city has got all the development that you want, all the commercial stores, restaurants, everything you want. There is nothing on the south side of the town. And my hope had always been that this area would develop and have some restaurants, have some places for people to shop. And it's not happening. And I think that's one of the reasons why we use this as a community activity center, so that there would generate something other than storage and industrial uses, which to me is what this is an industrial use. So I'm struggling trying to make this fit. I think it's one of the better looking storage units I've ever seen, and I agree with that. And it's big open land. It's like nothing out there. Why not put some storage units out there? And it would work well for Kent Hague's apartments, because obviously storage units and apartments go together. But it's also a prime piece of property that overlooks the Black Hills. It overlooks the land. From anything you put there looking to the west is just a beautiful area, and to have storage units there just doesn't feel right. It just seems like we should have something that generates activity, generates people showing up, looking at that beautiful property. And so I'm struggling with that. I'm not sure I'm supportive of the request based on the land use only. But I appreciate Andy's comments about trying to make it even better for the people around it. So that's my comments for now.
Thank you, Karen. Linda?
I strongly support Andy's comments, because before he made those comments, I was totally not for this, because I really feel this property should be used in another way. But if it was made more attractive on all of the sides, because there's going to be people living in this area, building homes and that type of thing, and some businesses that Karen was speaking about. So if we would consider Andy's recommendations, I would not be totally against this.
Thank you, Linda. Steve?
First, I want to thank Vicki for her comments, and I do want to thank staff for everything they've done to help move it to a place where it's going to look decent if it ultimately does get approved. And I really want to thank Andy for your comments too, because I like what you've done there, and I think they've come forward and tried to beautify as much as they can. I appreciate yours too, Karen. I understand where you're at too, because I'm kind of the same. But if Jeff is willing to go along with Andy's comments, I think I could approve of that as well. Thank you.
Can I talk, Sharon?
Jeff?
The short answer is yes, I'll do it. I'll put the hardy plank on basically, which would be the south end. Excuse me, on this, you're worried about the south end and you're worried about the west side, correct? And you're worried about the second building and in phase one actually doing more of the natural stone on the building going back, right? Just like you drew it, right? And I'll submit that exactly the way it is. The plants right now, I'm not the plant dude, so I don't know what lives here and dies. And it's a tough thing out here, because we actually irrigate all of it. It's on drip lines, but I'm going to leave that to the landscape guy to tell me. And I already told them that we use arborvitaes quite a bit in Wisconsin. I don't know if they make it here or whatever, but I told them I'd like more green and where you could see less, and that was the plan of attack. So it was already in the plan to do that, so you wouldn't see it from the west and the south. So I have no problem doing that either. So I think that took care of everybody's concerns right there as far as I can. Any other questions for me?
Andy?
If you water it, it'll grow. If you don't water it, it'll die.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm finding out, kinda. But
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
All I'm suggesting is there's a mixture of evergreens and deciduous trees on those borders, and I'm just suggesting use evergreen, which would be a pine or a spruce that would provide year-round blockage versus seasonal blockage.
Well, and it looks more like this area, right? It looks better, I think, too. So,
with all that being said, I guess Karen, answering your questions, I think the free market's going to prevail where the restaurants and where those types of items need to go, and that's going to be based upon traffic count, which will drive it on to Catron and the corner of Catron and 16, and some of the other existing developments or ones that are about to be developed. So, with that being said, if Mr. Fox is open to the ideas as proposed, I would make a motion to approve with the stipulations of adding the hardy plank siding to both the west and south elevations. On the west and south elevations, to provide fully coniferous screening landscaping and additional stone and hardy plank siding on that second building in behind the office to the west to provide a little bit more visual effect.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on that motion?
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
so may I make a friendly amendment, please? The exceptions have got to be granted to waive the requirement to provide an opaque screening fence and to waive the building material requirement that's set forth in ordinance, contingent upon the coniferous trees being provided along the west and south boundaries and the hardy plank being provided along the south and west elevation and the additional hardy plank and stone being provided along the east side of unit number 3 located interior to the development.
Okay. The second? All right. Anything further to add? All those in favor of the motion as recently stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes with Karen voting no. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Put the lights up, please.
Item number 9.
Thank you. Item number 9 is 15 UR 023, a conditional use permit to convert an existing off-premise billboard to an electronic message center or LED reader board. There's a long history to LED signage in the city. I won't get into all of it, but I will say that the applicant is requesting to take, let me run through the slides and we'll just do it this way. Look at the aerial map of the property. This is the Enterprise rental car location located on East North. The two signs that we're talking about are located right here. Zoning of the property, it's general commercial district and general commercial district area. At the location or close to the intersection of two principal arterial streets. Future land use map shows the entire area is appropriate for mixed-use commercial development and is located at the intersection of both the community activity center and a revitalization network corridor identified in the comprehensive plan. The applicant is proposing to take the two existing signs, as shown here, and consolidate them into one sign. With one side, a 250 square foot digital reader board that's facing east or up the hill, and the other side, a 250 square foot static billboard facing west or towards the Kmart. A look at the proposed static sign, 23 by 10 foot 9 inches. And I've looked at the proposed digital board, which is 22.1 by 11.3. Both signs will be mounted on top of a 30-foot monopole, which is in compliance with the requirements of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Look at the signs on the property today with the conditional use permit sign posted underneath them there. A look up the hill on East North and west along East North towards the Kmart. Another look at the property, this is just to give you a sense of the height of those signs and how they impact the view shed there. Coming down the hill on East North. As in terms of the requirements for off-premise billboards, the Rapid City Municipal Code states that an off-premise billboard may be replaced or improved if all requirements of the Rapid City Municipal Code are met with the exception of spacing. In this particular instance, the nearest off-premise billboard is 400 feet to the south, and all other requirements of the Rapid City Municipal Code are being met with the acceptance spacing. The sign is the correct height. The size of the billboard does not exceed 250 square feet. However, And Carla, with the city attorney's office, can get into this in more detail with you. A recent decision by Judge Viken regarding sign code and the legal history behind that essentially has put the citizens-initiated ban on billboards back in place. So the ban on digital billboards is still in place, and as such, staff must recommend that this application be denied. Carla is available to answer any questions regarding the legal action and history behind this, and Terry Olson from Lamar Advertising is available to answer any questions that you may have.
Carla?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I submitted a memo to the Planning Commission that was linked to the agenda that explained why it's our office's recommendation that the Planning Commission set aside the digital ban that's still in the ordinance. That digital ban was passed back in 2012 by a vote of the citizens and was promptly litigated by Lamar. Currently, the legal status of the digital ban was kind of muddied, I guess I would say, by Judge Viken's finding that he didn't have jurisdiction. We don't need to get into the legality of that, but Judge Viken had found that the digital ban violated state law and ultimately vacated that decision on another basis, but not because he changed his mind. And his argument on that ground is persuasive, and our office is concerned that enforcing the digital ban will expose us to some liability. And for that reason, we are recommended that the Planning Commission set aside the digital ban that's still in the ordinance and review this matter as if it were not there. And our office will be bringing forward some changes to the sign code in light of Judge Viken's recent decision that will be before the Planning Commission, I would expect in January, for the Planning Commission's review and ultimately for City Council review to address this problem. But we're not there yet. So my recommendation, again, is that you set aside the digital ban that's found in our ordinance.
Thank you. I also have a speaker request from Terry Olson.
Good morning, Terry Olson, Lamar Advertising. Robert explained it really well, and Carla explained her end real well. So I won't go over anything, but I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Galen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is kind of a confusing position for us to be in, and I'm a little uncomfortable with making any decision, to be honest with you. But I guess, like Carla said, if we consider this without the sign ban in place, I'm in favor of it. But it's also a sticky situation where I don't want to, approve this one and then have the sign ban come back in place, and then I guess I'm just a little confused on what we should do there. But in regards to, considering without the sign ban, one question on the location of the new sign is a little unclear from the site plan. Is this going up like in the exact location as one of the current signs, or is it a different? Basically, is it going in place of the left or the right sign that's up there right now?
In terms of whether it's replacing the left or right sign, I'm sorry, I would defer to Terry on that. In terms of what their plans are, the site plan that was submitted shows the property will be the edge of the sign will be located 5 foot from the southern property line. In terms of how that, the Rapid City Municipal Code applies to that, what it requires is that the sign either be 10 feet back or 10 feet above grade. The pole the bottom of the sign will be approximately 18 feet above grade, so it can be 5 feet off the southern property line, if that helps or gives you any clarity there.
Mr. Olson?
Yeah, Robert's right. We're just going to put it 5 feet from the property line on both sides. We like a little setback there. Also, we have a permanent easement there, and we're kind of locked into where we could put it there. So, for simplicity's sake, it'll be way on the left-hand billboard, one closest to the road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess that answers my question, and I just, one final comment is, if we consider it without the sign ban, I guess I'm in favor of it, because we are removing one sign, we're reducing our, cleaning it up, so if that's what we decide, I guess I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Galen. Steve?
I kind of echo the thoughts of Galen there. It's difficult, but I think as a planning commission, we have to make decisions. That's why we're here. And I think we need to go take our attorney's advice and look at it as if it's not in place. And whatever decisions we make, if a court changes that, it changes it. It's just part of life. But I do like the idea that we're getting rid of 2 billboards up there where the paper can tear and it can look awful, and putting something up there that's always going to look nice. So I think in that respect, we're getting rid of 2 billboards and we're having one that's going to look better, so I will support that. Thank you.
John Brewer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had one question with regard to, I'm supportive of Steve and Galen's comments with regard to reduces 1 board to 2 and improves the appearance, and I guess I've always supported where we could billboards as opposed to wanting them all taken away. So I'm of record in being pro. But I did hear one comment that I need some clarification. Is there an exception in this for spacing?
Yes, the exception is built in. The Rapid City Municipal Code states that as long as all other requirements of the municipal code, with the exception of spacing, are being met, then the conditional use permit could be approved.
So the code provides for the exception?
Correct.
In that case, then, do you look for a motion to approve? Are there stipulations in there? I'm sorry, I don't have that up.
Yeah, the recommendation is for denial from staff due to the ban
Mr.
being on
Chair?
the books.
However, the motion needs to be stated. I'm prepared to make it to approve the item.
Second.
If the motion maker would like to make a motion to approve, then can I recommend that you also add one stipulation that says, upon submittal of a sign permit, that the site plan be clarified to ensure that no portion of the sign will overhang into the adjacent right-of-way.
Yes, that's our plan. We're going to get it surveyed and get pins set. And, yeah, that's not our list of things to do, is put it in the wrong spot. So,
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. That's my motion.
Okay, John made the motion. Is there a second? Steve seconded. I've got Karen with comments yet to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think everybody knows my position on billboards and LED signs and stuff like that, but I just want to clarify in my own mind that the 2 signs are both coming down and they're going to erect a new one. Is that kind of the idea, as compared to leaving the one there? I mean, are you going to move it, or?
Right. The City of Rapid City requires engineered drawings for digital, and the digital is a lot heavier than our current face on there, so we have to, bring our structure up per code. So we're going to remove both of them and rebuild one as per code, as per our digital restrictions.
Okay, and so the one that's on the left, is that the new billboard would be a little bit closer to the street?
It'll be approximately in the same spot as the one on the left will be.
Okay.
Again, we're going to get it surveyed and get the pin set and to make sure we're in the right spot. And then again, we have a permanent easement there, so we're kind of locked in where we can go with it. So.
Okay. Thank you, Terry.
Yep.
Jan.
I'm just want to clarify that the staff recommends we deny, and Carla and legal recommends we accept. Is that where we are?
She advised we ignore.
Well,
Mr. Chair?
but if we ignore, then we accept, right?
I think that's accurate. Planning staff felt like they were constrained by the ordinance and the language in the ordinance, and I don't disagree with that. I don't think the Planning Commission has the same restraint, which is why I made my recommendation. And I think it's safe to say that planning staff's only basis for recommending to deny is the existence of the digital ban. So they don't have any other reasons to deny, or I read the staff report, I didn't see anything in there other than the digital ban. So that I know it's kind of an unusual situation, and we don't like to put you in that kind of a situation, but that's just the reality of what we're in.
Thank you, Carla. Any further discussion on the item? We do have a motion on the floor. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve with the stipulation, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10.
Thank you. Item number 10 is 15 PD 041, a final plan development to allow greenhouses as an accessory use to the existing school for an approximately 11.05 acres of property located at Black Hills Works on Range Road. The applicant is proposing to allow construction of a series of greenhouses and gardens as part of a phased project to allow the existing clients of the school opportunities for training and an opportunity for to operate a business. The applicant is proposing to sell this the produce as a result of these greenhouses and gardens to local restaurants, health institutions, schools, and a way to train clients in regards to local economic activity. Let me take you through some slides. The Black Hills Works property, for point of reference, this particular greenhouse is being approved as part of Phase 1, is located south of these greenhouses here, but the entirety of the operation will be located in this area of the campus. Zoning of the property is office commercial district. I should point out here, the applicant is requesting an exception to allow or to reduce the required front yard setback along Range Road from 25 feet to 17 feet for the existing structure. We take a look at the site plan, you'll see that when the survey was done, it was they realized that the existing structure, a portion of the parking is not located on the property. So they're proposing to allow the existing structure to remain with the reduced setback. They're not requesting or requiring any reductions in parking. The amount of parking that they are providing does meet the minimum requirements, or legally complying parking does meet the requirements of the code. Look at the major street plan. You can see Range Road is a collector street, so is Susan Road. And a look at the future land use of the property. The area is developed with urban neighborhood, a mix of residential and accessory uses such as a church. In particular, the property located adjacent to the south here is a church. We've got West Middle School located there, and additional school property located here as well. Site plan, I grant that this is a little bit light, difficult to see. What you should be aware of is the existing greenhouse to be completed as a part of Phase 1, 30 by 48 foot greenhouse. I'll show you the location of that in the slides coming up. The applicant is also proposing this area space here would be a fruit orchard or a large, essentially a field for either fruit orchard or crops like pumpkin, squash, things like that. That's Phase 1. Phase 2 would include these raised planter beds here, and then Phase 3 would be the balance, which would consist of a number of greenhouses and planter beds. Look at the architectural stylings of the particular greenhouse. Look at the property, sign posted. This is on the, I guess it would be the easternmost driveway. Looking into the site, and then this is looking up the hill on Range Road to the west, and then to the east towards the intersection of Range Road and Susan. I'll look into the parking lot. All of these parking spaces actually do not legally comply with the requirements of the Rapid City Municipal Code because of where that property line is located at. Again, it's 17 feet away from the structure. So everything on the right side of the screen as you look at it would be located, or could not be considered legally compliant parking. This is a look behind the structure. If you look on the left side of the screen, you see some greenhouse structures here to give you a frame of reference. I'll look then at the site where they're proposing to do the third phase of this development would be located closest to the pavement. The second phase would be behind that, and then the fruit orchard would be on the very southern end of the property. If you take a look in the background, you can see the community building for, I think it's Calvary Lutheran. The name escapes me suddenly, but so that would be the nearest. It's residentially zoned property, and that would be the nearest additional use. And that I should also point out that they are requesting another exception to waive the required screening fence that would be required to be provided between this property and the church property there, given the distance between the two and the fact that the gardens themselves will act as the vegetative buffer between the two uses. Requiring the screening fence seems like redundant. This space to the right of the existing greenhouse would be where they're proposing the 30-foot by 48-foot greenhouse, which would be the first part of what they're proposing. And then one other look onto the site showing the balance of the property. So with the two exceptions that are being requested, the reduction in the front yard setback for the existing structure and to waive the requirement for the screening fence, both of which would allow for the development of the site with a sustainable local food source that can be used for training facilities for people with disadvantages. All this leads staff to conclude that the application should be approved with the stipulations under the staff report.
Thank you, Robert. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question after our lengthy discussion on building materials a couple of items ago. We do have neighbors there that come up to the property, and so visually, I didn't see I know greenhouses are glass and aluminum or steel, whatever they are, but is there any impact based on this construction that would be something that was addressed in the application regarding visual for the neighbors?
There is nothing in Rapid City Municipal Code which regulates the appearance of greenhouses. However, the design of the site itself with the principal school structure located along Range Road, as well as the accessory structures that are located, maybe a moment here, the accessory structures that are located here between West Middle School and this campus are providing some means of buffering between Range Road and the proposed greenhouses. That was one thing that staff did take into account when looking at this. So the visual impact along Range Road will be minimized. The structures will be behind the buildings. You can see there is some open space between what's being proposed here and the backside of West Middle School. However, again, when we're talking about two things taken into account, the first being that this is a phased project, so that is anticipated to be 4, 5, 6 years down the road. And second, the nature of the use, we feel it minimizes the impact of the use, if that makes any sense. The greenhouses we don't expect them to have a major impact on the neighboring school.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think it's a great project, so I'm going to move for approval per stipulations.
Second. I,
Okay. John made the motion and Linda seconded. Kim will be abstaining. Karen has some further comments.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree, this is a great project, and I'm definitely in support of it. I do have a question as far as the stipulations that would be with the approval. I noticed in the discussion, it was said that there's a 25-foot setback for the school only, or, for the, existing school that's there. Should that be part of the stipulations, or is it safe to say 25 feet is just hereby approved to 17 feet without mentioning that? I just didn't know if we should add that.
So the proposed structures will all meet the setback requirements. This is just, the exception that you're granting is for the existing structures, so that if in the future they were ever needed to be added on to or changed, they wouldn't have to come back and get a major amendment at that time. So we're just kind of cleaning that part up, but all of the proposed development meets setbacks.
Yes, and I just wondered if we should add that piece that says for the existing structures only.
Thank you, now I understand. Certainly we can do that.
Okay, that would be my friendly amendment, if that's okay with John and Linda.
Right,
Okay.
we will change that stipulation to read that the required front yard setback for the existing structures be reduced from 25 feet to 17 feet. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good comment, Karen. Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Leads us to the end. Discussion items, staff items, any items? Carla?
Yes. Some time ago, the Planning Commission had asked, actually it was the Zoning Board, but I wanted to put it on the Planning Commission agenda and have it at the end, asked me to look into the remedies that the city might have when encroachments are built in the right-of-way, or more commonly in the setbacks. You'll remember that last month you looked at one building that went right through the setback into the right-of-way, and you were granting a variance and a vacation of right-of-way. And when you were asked to do that, because of the error that the construction had caused, I looked into, there's a memo that's attached to the agenda where I looked into the remedies that the city might have when this occurs. Specifically, you all were discussing fines, and unless the city were to adopt a home rule charter and go that direction, there's very limited ability for the city to charge fines, to civil penalties, civil fines, when people violate our ordinances. Violations of zoning ordinances is not one of the times under state law when we can charge a fine. We do have two options currently, one which are not exactly terrific. One is to pursue the matter criminally. We do have that ability to, any violation of our city ordinances, we can file a criminal citation. We can charge them or request from the court a $500 fine or 30 days in jail for every violation of city ordinance. Those criminal enforcement is handled by our office. We currently don't enforce these types of violations in that manner, and we'd probably need some direction from council to do so, but that is legally one option which can be pursued. And every day that the violation occurs is a separate violation. So, it's effective in some cases to be getting a $500 risk every day, but you can probably see the problems with handling it that way. State law also provides that the city can file a lawsuit seeking injunctive relief to remove violations to our ordinances. And so that would require, if there's a setback situation where, let's take the West Rapid example, where the zoning board didn't grant the variance and didn't grant the right-of-way, and so that encroachment was illegal. The city would have the ability to file a lawsuit asking the court to remove that encroachment. The courts, haven't been real excited about removing things because they really do a balancing test on, usually this is prompted by a neighbor who's complaining, and they kind of balance the harm to the neighbor with the harm to the person who made the mistake, and usually come out in favor of the harm to the neighbor who's complaining really isn't as bad as removing a $100,000 cabin that was built in the setback. But that also, that kind of balancing can be affected if it's shown that a person knew that they were doing it and did it anyway. Most of the cases that I've seen, there's a claim of innocence. We didn't know that we were doing it, but that is a legal option that the city can pursue if these encroachments aren't made legal through a variance or through a setback variance or a vacation of right-of-way. So that's the information I found out.
Interesting. Thank you, Carla. John?
Thank you, Carla. I didn't really expect this to be the legal interpretation after our long visits with the property down there I assume this came out of the property that where the neighbor was basement flooded and contractor had built across the
Or the print
setback.
market.
At any rate, whether it was that or something else that brought it forward, just one thing that I don't see addressed in here is the matter of safety. Occasionally we get these requests for reduction, or they build into the, if you will, the sight line. So traffic is, the traffic triangle can't be met, the ordinance can't be met because of the encroachment. Or they come before us asking for an exception so they can build into that. Does this cover any of that? This is actually subject to the building permit.
Well, I think, if there's a safety or health and safety issue, I think that would be persuasive in our office pursuing either a criminal citation or filing a lawsuit to remove the encroachment. And I think in those kind of situations, the city is more likely to be successful just because there's a good reason other than a complaining neighbor. So that is definitely an option when health and safety is in play. It doesn't necessarily give us any additional remedies. You mentioned the building permit. I talked with Brad Solon about, if there's an encroachment that hasn't been made legal through a variance process, how do we deal with that at the building permit stage? And their general policy is that, they'll grant a building permit for maintaining the existing structure or possibly adding on to the structure if it doesn't make the encroachment worse. So that's how it's dealt with at the building permit stage. The only additional thing that they always tell people is that if you're aware of an encroachment, you have to disclose it on your seller's disclosure form when you go to sell the property. I'm not sure if that actually occurs or how persuasive that is when you're...
There's supposed to be a survey if they get a mortgage as
Well,
part of the
yes,
documentation. and
normally-
hopefully
normally.
the surveyor might catch it. Nobody looks at them anyway. The other thing is, another remedy would be civil suits between the parties.
Yes, that's always an option. Although a lot of times they end up suing the city because...
Well, you got the money.
Well, but the cases that I looked at, a lot of times the variance was granted and by the city. There was a case in Spearfish in this that I specifically looked at. And so they were mad at the city, so they sued the city. And then in that kind of a case, it'd be better if they had sued the property owner because the court was not inclined to burden the property owner who wasn't a party to the suit. So, but those kind of, that's always an option, neighbor versus neighbor, lawsuit in civil court.
Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you. Currently, do we have a contractor's license? So if somebody's going to build something, they have to get a license to the city? Do we do have that, correct?
Yes, generally.
Okay, so, yeah, I understand. So if there's one contractor that continually does those kinds of things and makes errors and not very good, is it something that the city council can then say we are going to pull that contractor's license so he can't work for so many days or a year or forever, if that's the case? That is an option?
That is an option. I think if that were a problem, a chronic problem with a certain contractor, staff would recommend either suspension or revocation of that license, and that would kind of go through the process and ultimately probably head to the city council. So that is definitely an option.
Okay, at least that's for the continual problem
Sure.
child. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Steve?
The first option you said was $500 fine and/or 30 days in jail, correct? And that's for every day that you do it. And you definitely see the problem there. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you have to fine them for every day. You could just say $500 or 30 days in jail and not do the everyday thing. I mean, that's not something that has to be done.
Correct.
I think most of them would just pay the $500 rather than 30 days in jail. But I like Karen's, I see where Karen's going with that too, where, maybe if they've done it a couple times, then you send them a warning of some site, come up with some sort of thing where, first time, they're talked about, have a process that you go through to say, well, if this happens again after you've been notified, then it could be a 30-day suspension or whatever. And I think maybe we should be looking at that lines, because I definitely see the 530 days ongoing every day as be a huge issue, and the city wouldn't look real well, I think, in the end.
No, you're right. We could do a citation that way. That's commonly how we do it. If this rises to that level, for example, I think we cite. No, I think that would be a preferable way to deal with it.
One question I had, seeing no other lights up, on the criminal citation side, do you have to prove willful negligence in order to have it criminally granted in a court, or is this just something that the city can unilaterally file due to the facts on the ground, so to speak?
The second, we just would need to show that there was an encroachment and that they were the property owner, and that would be the end of it. We'd have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, because it's a criminal matter, but we wouldn't have to prove any state of mind. We just have to use a survey, really, to show that they built a building in the setback.
Interesting. Yeah, big difference. Maybe something for the city council to think about. Any other discussion items?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We would like to thank the Planning Commission for all the great conversation today. We brought some items before you that were difficult. What we saw is that you listened to both sides and you made the decision with stipulations to try to forge a compromise. And that we put you in those difficult positions sometimes, and we want to thank you for that. And for the rest of the year, when you show up and you're here early in the morning. And so with that, we wish you happy holidays. And there are caramel rolls over to the side for you to enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move the adjourn.
Linda made the motion, Steve seconded. All those in favor? Aye.